Welcome back to Jack's Some Trades. In this video, I'm going to show you how I transformed this old kitchen cabinetry into 24 rustic farm-style picture frames. This white oak was saved from a kitchen remodel 15 years ago, and it's been sitting outside in the elements ever since. It's seen quite a bit of dirt and grime throughout the years, but with a little bit of work, it'll turn out to be some really nice picture frames. You can take some inspiration from this video and make your own frames at home, or you can click the link to my Etsy store in the description of this video if you want to get yourself one of these very frames. Here's the drawing with the dimensions for the frames. As you can see, it'll hold an 8x10 picture and have an overall outer dimension of 13 1/4 by 15 1/4 inches. And this is what it'll look like after it's all put together. To start off the build, any hardware that's been left in the wood has to be removed to prevent ruining any blades and for obvious safety reasons. As you can see, there are quite a few screws and nails still in the wood. The nail holes will leave a unique rustic look in the wood. Most of the wood I have is 3 inches wide, so I set my table saw fence to 1 7/16 inches, which is half of 3 minus the kerf. Then I rip all the wood on the table saw to make them all the same width. On the miter saw, I cut half the wood to 13 1/4 inch lengths and the other half to 15 1/4 inch lengths, which will be the overall outer dimensions of the 8x10 frames. I ended up with 48 of each size, meaning I could make 24 frames. I then sand every single piece on the belt sander to get rid of the dirt and any old finish that was on the wood. Yes, that's a total of 96 pieces that I had to sand, and let me tell you, a benchtop planer is looking like a really good investment at this point. On the table saw, I set my dado stack to cut the lap joint that will hold the frames together. For the 3/4 inch wood, I set my blades to cut 3/8 inches deep. The next step is to cut a 1/4 inch rabbet that the glass and backing will sit inside. I set my router to cut the exact depth of the thickness of my glass and backing so that it sits flush with the back of the frame. I cut the rabbet on the back of each of the 96 pieces. I made a little mistake and realized the widths of my pieces were not all exactly the same due to the slight variance in width of the original wood. If I wanted my lap joint to work, the widths had to be all exactly the same on all pieces, so I just put them through the table saw again. This step could have easily been avoided if I had just made sure to cut all the pieces the first time, instead of assuming I was cutting the pieces exactly in half. Now that all the widths are exactly the same, I can put all the frames together. I apply glue to each of the lap joints and put it together like a puzzle. The joints fit pretty snug, which is good. Some even required a little bit of persuasion with a rubber mallet. I laid all the pieces out on the ground so I could see the different color shades and grain patterns, and I selected the pieces for each frame accordingly. Then, I give each one a final sand with a fine grit to make them a little bit smoother and to get rid of any rough edges. Finally, I put all the hardware into the frames, so that you can insert a picture and hang it on the wall in either a portrait or landscape position. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other DIY projects and subscribe for future projects.